Now, here's Ed Bernstein.
Hey, Rick Allen from Def Leppard. How are you?
I'm very well. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Now, you're known for so many different things. Obviously, being the drummer at Def Leppard, having been through a horrible accident in the 80s when you lost an arm, and now your artwork. Amazing, yeah.
It's an extension of really an extension of the music. Mm-hmm. I love playing music because it keeps me in the moment. When I'm really, in that zone, time just stands still.
And that's kind of a focus.
Yeah.
Like when you're drumming, performing, you get into that zone. It's really that everything out here doesn't exist. It's all right there in front of you with that drum set, right?
That's it. It's me and the drum kit.
Right. And that happens with your artwork?
That started to happen after I started painting with my youngest daughter, because I got into painting when I was young, when I was still at school, and then I discovered music.
So when you say you got into painting when you were young,
yeah,
you're in school and you're doing what? Just basic drawings, houses,
basic drawings,
trees, that type of thing.
As much paint on the ceiling and floor as there was on the paper, but I loved the whole idea of it. It was so immediate, It was me, a brush, the paint.
So what were you painting in those days?
In those days,
landscapes or people?
Really, just abstracts. I liked abstracts. I liked to experiment with sticking different things onto the paper, painting over them, and creating all these cool sort of abstract pieces. Nothing out of the ordinary, I didn't think. And then, like I say, I discovered music, and then came full circle when I started painting with my daughter, because I saw that she went into this fantastic sort of fantasy place whenever I saw her painting. She was always in the moment, and there were never any rules. It wasn't like calculated, and I recognized that she went to the same place when she painted that I go when I play drums. And I kind of rediscovered that that's why I loved it so much as a kid, because I could just disappear.
So you did amazing things when you were younger.
Yeah.
Now, as a parent, I'm thinking, you're 15 years old, mm-hmm. and you're auditioning to play drums for a rock band.
Yeah.
And your parents are okay with that? And
they were actually really supportive. Like, for instance, the first time I came home at sort of, 9 or 10 years old, and I said, my best friend John just got a guitar. Could I have a drum kit? And they're like, no, you can't have a drum kit. It's like, we can't afford that. But then they thought a little bit, and they came back to me and they said, well, if you start doing some jobs around the neighborhood,
right.
You need to get lessons, because we don't want to commit to something and then you just drop it. So it was always a bit like that. They supported me, but they wanted a commitment.
They wanted you to be accountable.
They wanted me a commitment from me.
And did you take lessons?
I did.
Young? Yeah.
I did. A guy called Kenny Slade, and he was a local drummer. Played a wee bit with Joe Cocker, and he was good. He taught me how to read and basic rudiments. Showed me the right books to buy, and he was an all-around colorful character. Yeah.
But you left school. I mean, that's where I'm going with this.
I know.
Okay, I'm thinking back. Look, you're a father now. Your daughter comes up to you and said, "Dad, want to quit school?" And
I'd be like, "No way!"
Right?
No, absolutely no way. So I guess my parents were quite sort of progressive in that, mm-hmm. and they saw how committed I was to playing drums, and they saw how committed the band were to me, and how committed we were to each other. And they must have picked up on something, and they knew that this was going to be successful.
You were kind of like the young kid in the band.
I'm still the youngest.
Yeah. We reach a certain age, everybody kind of becomes the same age.
No, it kind of all blends in. It's like, they don't notice. But yeah, they were really cool. They went to school. They convinced, they convinced the school that, I think the private conversation went something like, well, he's not going to be a brain surgeon, so, like let him play the drums. Let's see how far it goes. So, but I made it a success. We made it a success, and it was the best decision they ever made. My parents ever made. Because they got it. They convinced the school, and they said, listen, if he stays and does his schoolwork and waits, he's going to miss this opportunity. And they said, you got to go. You got to do this. So they let me leave school.
And you achieved a lot of fame early.
Yeah, we did.
Is that difficult for somebody that young, a teenager, to have that kind of success that quickly? May not have seemed quickly then.
No, I know what you mean. Yeah. It didn't seem out of the ordinary to me, though, because I'd been playing in local bands for years before I got into Def Leppard. I say years, really from the age of 10 years old, forming a band with my best friend, and then I went through probably 2 or 3 bands before I finally met up with the guys from Def Leppard. So I'd had quite a bit of experience playing in front of audiences, a lot smaller audiences, but still I had that. And I think because I got into it so young, to me it wasn't out of the ordinary, It
was just all you knew.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah.
Now, at that time, when those teenage years, you weren't really pursuing the art thing.
No.
Right? You're just focusing on the drum thing.
Focusing on drums. I always enjoyed photography, and that was a way. The photography became a friend. It was like something that I could take with me wherever I went and document a lot of my experiences.
You took a camera on tour with you?
Yeah, it's here with me now.
What was your first camera?
My first camera, my grandfather gave me a Brownie. Yeah,
I remember those.
Which is like, that's a classic. I still have that to this day. It's.
So did you develop as well as?
No. I never got into that. Mm-hmm. No, I was experimenting with other chemicals. But that's another story.
Understand the time period.
All right.
And what is your preferred camera today?
I actually got a really nice Sony, the A7.
Isn't it amazing how all of a sudden, growing up it was always Nikons, Canons, things like that. Now Sony is so prominent in that market.
No, the sensor is really accurate, and it's very dimensional. I feel like remember when you got the Kodachrome and you'd looked at the slides, it's got that same feeling, that same depth. And I just really like that camera, and the fact that it's a mirrorless makes it relatively compact for me, So if I keep like just a 35mm lens on it, I can basically carry it anywhere.
When you're playing drums, the whole camera photography and the art thing is so visual, but when you're playing drums, are you seeing anything, visualizing anything?
Yeah, I'm. Actually, one of the prayers that I say before I play is always, may this be for the good of everyone here, not just the audience, but all of us, our crew, and anybody that is in, close proximity, or further. It doesn't matter to me. So my intention is, it's almost like using the music as a vehicle for how I want people to feel, and I think that's the power of music and art. And
But where is your mind while you're playing?
it's that's a really good question, and I'm not quite sure. It's this strange combination of sometimes really intense concentration, but then other times where it just seems like this is so easy. This is it just feels so natural.
Familiar.
Yeah, and it never seems like a chore, you know. But yeah, there must be a lot going on.
So you're a young man. You're playing with this, great rock group, Def Leppard, and having amazing success with a couple of great albums. And you get into a horrific accident in your Corvette. You want to talk about that?
Yeah,
I mean, you talk about it a lot, right?
I do, and it helps me. And that's one thing that I've really learned is, if I'm open about it, then it doesn't necessarily get me down, I was trying to convey this to somebody else, and yeah, losing the arm was horrible, and the whole experience was awful. But in a very wonderful way, it became a blessing because I was able to inspire other people. And I think the thing that really helped me was when I stopped comparing myself to how I used to be. I stopped comparing myself to other drummers, two-arm drummers. And I really embraced the fact that what I do with my right hand and my feet and playing this incredible drum kit is really unique. And once I embraced that, it took a huge weight off my shoulders.
I mean, that seems to be a lesson that we all need to learn at some time in our life. I mean, if you're an athlete, it reaches a point in your career that you can't perform the same way that you did when you were younger. And
what a day that is,
But you typically make up for it with experience and wisdom and the other things that age brings to you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I feel as though that's the path I took. And there are those days, when you're like, if only.
Yeah.
But then you're like, no, I'm just going to count my blessings exactly the way that I am, because I've had immense success, and generally I'm a happy person. I have a really supportive family. The guys in the band are really, they're really supportive of me. So it's a good thing,
You got into an accident, you woke up, I assume, in the hospital after that?
Actually, the thing that saved my life was, and this is kind of hazy, but because I must have gone into shock. But as I left I rolled the car, and as I rolled the car, I left through the sunroof, but the seatbelt came undone. It was the seatbelt that took my arm.
Like the Corvette has a kind of T-top.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So I landed in a field, and I remember, one of the last things I remember was standing up and realizing what had happened. So
you were able to stand, you got thrown into a field some distance away from the vehicle,
Yeah.
right? And you were able to stand up?
Yeah.
Amazing.
I stood up, and I was like, wow, this just happened to me. At that point, it was like a complete out-of-body experience. In fact, it was like a dream. It was like it wasn't even happening. Almost like an incremental shutdown of senses.
Right.
Where, at a certain point, as long as we've got a heartbeat and a pulse, then we're good. And that is actually one of the things that saved me, was remaining somewhat conscious, was because my body tensed, so I didn't bleed. Remember, I'm out in rural England, outside of my hometown. So, if I'd have completely lost consciousness, I don't think I'd be here.
I think did I read somewhere that there was a nurse in a vehicle behind you or something?
That's right.
Yeah.
There was a district nurse, Eileen Pierce, and Roger, an off-duty cop, and they pulled up at the scene of the accident right after it happened, and the two of them basically saved my life, and it became a beautiful love story because the two of them, they ended up getting married. So, in some way, shape, or form, however this whole thing works, I just hope that I had something to do with, you know, bringing these beautiful people together. They were like those angels people talk about, angels on earth, you know, that are just there at just the right moment.
Yeah, yeah.
And they were.
It's one of those things in life that, you know, at the time it's going through, it doesn't sounds horrible. Then you look back and, okay, there was a purpose, reason, and it made sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And it obviously wasn't my time to go. And, you know, it's been challenging, really challenging. But, you know, I'm in a good place.
You are. Let's talk about some art.
Yeah.
Okay. So, you had this skill as a child. At what point in time did you re-explore the art world?
When I started painting with my youngest daughter.
Okay. So, she's doodling.
Yeah.
Right? Right?
Yeah.
Probably finger painting a little bit.
Yeah.
Right? And
You name it, she'd get everything involved.
You're watching her and say, boy, I remember I used to do that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it just reignited that passion. You know, I'd been through, you know, the early successes of the band, and, you know, remembering all of that, and the reason why I play drums, and then seeing her paint, she was completely in the moment, and it just reminded me of where I go when I play drums. So I was like, I want to paint like
Right.
that, without any rules, and just kind of rekindle, you know, why I started painting as a kid.
Did you have any training with painting?
No, I have a couple of mentors, and they teach me some really nice techniques. This is a good example of that particular technique.
This is part of the Legends
Yeah,
series?
and Steve Clark was actually one of my bandmates. Unfortunately, Steve's not with us anymore. But it was great training wheels for learning this particular technique, where, you know, I dumb down a photograph, and then what I do is I sketch the photograph onto the canvas, and then I create a grayscale. So I'll create, you know, whites, grays, and blacks, and then after that, after I've done all the sketching, then I start to figure out what I want those colors to be. Do I want the black to remain black? Do I want the gray to remain gray, or do I want it more of a skin tone? What do I want the white to be? Is the white more of a skin tone? And then when you finish this whole thing, it doesn't really make sense when you stand up close to it. It's all geometric shapes. But then when you start to stand away from it, I think your mind just makes sense of it and fills in the blanks.
It's like everything else in life, much easier to see from a distance.
Yes, and that's what I love about this particular technique.
And what's your signature? How do you sign your artwork there?
I just do it with a Sharpie.
Says Alan?
Yeah, Rick Allen.
Okay.
Yeah, I know. Hey.
You're a much better artist than your handwriting.
Oh
would
yeah,
indicate,
absolutely.
Russ.
I should have been a doctor.
And so in the Legends series, who else have you?
I moved on to doing John Lennon. I did. There's a Janis Joplin back there. There's Tom Petty.
A lot of these are bands from the 60s and 70s.
Yeah, well, that was really our influence. You know, everybody thinks, oh, 80s band, but in reality, You know, we've been around since 1977. So all of our influence came from the previous decade,
Right.
you know.
Which is your favorite?
Oh man, I have so many. I love Hendrix, and that was another one of the Legend series also.
And you take somebody like, I mean, look, Hendrix, Lennon, I mean, they've been painted so many times
I know.
by so many people, right? Is that intimidating to you that you make up your mind, I'm going to do a John Lennon portrait, and, you know, it's got to be a little bit different than others, but you know, I don't want to, you know, I want it to be as good, or, I mean, is it competitive?
I thought that at first, and then I said, you know what, I'm just going to do it the way that I want to do it. I think I probably spent about 3 weeks or probably about a month, and I'd paint a little bit and then go away, paint a little bit more and go away, and just let the thing sort of develop organically, and I was really happy with the results.
How do you decide at what age you're going to paint somebody?
At what age, you mean?
In other words, how old was John Lennon in your mind when you're painting his portrait, or Janis Joplin when you're painting hers?
That's a really good question, because I was trying to find imagery where the face was really the focus, and it wasn't full body. So part of my decision making was that. But with Lennon, he must have been probably late 30s in the particular one that I painted. I mean, how old was Lennon when he died?
That's a trick question.
I know.
He died in...
So he died in what, 81?
1980, okay.
Okay. But yeah, that's a really, I don't know, I'm just drawn to a certain image or a certain time period. It was like with Tom Petty, because I did the Tom Petty piece so relatively soon after his death, I wanted to paint him as people would remember him. Okay. Like now with the beard and, you know, out on tour and basically enjoying some of the best years of his life. And I wanted people to remember that. I didn't necessarily want to go back, you know, way into the past. So it really depends on, you know, the artist and how I feel at the time, and how I'm drawn in by that image. So,
other than the Legend series, I saw you have quite a few paintings of one of your daughters.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because not only are the age that you're capturing her, she looks, I don't know, 5 years old.
Yeah, there's a couple of them. There's one that I did where she must be about 3 or 4,
yeah.
And then there's some more recent ones where she's like probably 6 or 7.
Because when you're watching her paint and she's in the moment, and that's an important thing to you, but there's a certain element of freedom that she has that you're capturing in your paintings.
Yeah, absolutely. Right? And it was that freedom that inspired me, that, you know, to want to be better at doing this.
Where does somebody obtain a painting of yours?
Well, we're here all month.
Okay, we're here in Las Vegas. I should say we have a residency here at the Zappo's Theater at Planet Hollywood, right?
Yeah, and didn't this place used to be the Aladdin?
It used to be the Aladdin. It was very magical.
So we played here in 1983.
And it was a great theater at that time. It was state of the art at that time.
And everybody, I mean, this place must have an incredible history. You know, if these worlds could talk, you know. So it's pretty ironic that we came back here.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But there's a gallery that represents you.
There is, Wentworth Gallery, wentworthgallery.com. They probably, you know, they have an online gallery where you can go and you can see some of the pieces. or you could go to rickallen.com, and I know that I've got a bunch of the stuff up there also. So at least people can get to look at it.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily the same looking at it online as opposed to, you know, going into a physical gallery.
Right.
But at least people can get an idea of what's out there, what's available.
Your parents still alive?
My mother is. Sadly, my dad, he lost his battle with cancer. Yeah, that was a really interesting time in my life. But you know, we've all been through it.
Everybody goes through everything, right?
I know
Yeah. Yeah. So where do you go from here, Rick? I mean, you continue the painting. I mean, you can do that. You know, long after you get tired of playing drums, right?
A lot less physical than playing drums, I'll tell you.
Yeah.
You know, after 2 days of rehearsals, I feel a bit beaten up. You know. You know, we're learning a lot of songs that we haven't played in decades, you know, because obviously it's a more captive sort of audience. There's a lot of diehards out there. So we wanted to play a lot of music that they probably haven't heard before. But I think the painting will continue. And at this point, I can only get just better at it, more subject matter, pulling on life experience, you know, just keep exploring, keep pushing out. And it's a great way to meet people as well.
Yes,
you know, when I meet people backstage in a Def Leppard situation, it's normally, you know, a handshake, a signature, or a photograph. Whereas this, you
get familiar with somebody for
you
sure.
You can, you know, yeah. It's like, well, what do you like about the piece? And then you get into this whole conversation about, you know, about the art.
Well, it was great to meet you.
Fantastic, and you too. Thank you very much.
Rick Allen.
My daughter Dana fought a long battle with Crohn's disease before passing last year. Max has spent a lifetime scoring goals.
It's our goal to help the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation find a cure for this horrible disease, so no one else's child has to suffer like Dana did.